if you weren't qualified to write that, are you qualified to review the output?
Ooh. Hey, it's Brett Chittum here with Lawrence Systems, and I'm here with
Jason Slagle from CNWR. And I have to point that way to get Brett. Yeah.
yeah. It's backwards, because if you do that, it's not good.
Actually,
but
when I point at the wall, that's what I guess it's fine. Yeah. Okay.
This is Business Technicalities, and I mean, we're talking about today's a hot topic of AI, ChatGPT, and things like that. And Jason and I will probably take two different avenues on this because I, being the sales and guy, wants to build the relationships and not necessarily use AI, but I have, and I will tell that story during this time. And Jason, on the other hand, I mean, ChatGPT can write code and stuff. I mean, it can do a lot of things, but
it can. I don't know if I trust it to, but it can.
It can, but we're talking more on the business side, proposals, and how should you use ChatGPT to write a proposal? I don't know, Jason, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna so I'll call out the fact that we're gonna kind of YOLO this one a little more. Normally I do at least have some topics to try to keep us on some sort of schedule. But this one we're like, you know what? There's enough of this. We can just wing it. So we're gonna wing it. Yeah, I definitely am using it at present for a number of purposes, and I mean, I think that we should just talk about each of the use cases, and we'll kind of go through it. So should we start with the one in the title?
Yeah, proposals. Let's start with that one.
There. See it? Yeah,
right up there. Well,
yeah. I don't know where it'll be on YouTube, on StreamYard. We're recording this. It's up there. Yeah. So should we use ChatGPT to write proposals? I will tell you out of the gate that I have used ChatGPT to help with statements of work for sure. Do I use what it produces directly? No, I don't. But you know what? I have writer's block, and it produces a framework that I can turn into what I need it to be. And maybe I only end up using 20% of the actual words it spits out. But it still saves me time, right? Because, I sit there and I stare at that blank paper and I'm like, what the hell do I even write here? Like, I swear.
I like,
it's not in
I
the
like
first
having
30 seconds.
I like having exactly. I like having something there because I used it recently to do a big announcement on stuff I'm doing in my life, and I will tell you, it wrote it really well. I just went through and kind of changed some of the wording of it, but it did a really good job. I mean, you ask it a specific question, it gives you something really, really specific.
It does. I can recognize it now. At least the ChatGPT outputs. If you don't edit them, I can fairly well see. It has a very specific writing style, and so I recognize it now. So when I get a sales email, I'm like, oh, that's definitely straight out of ChatGPT. So there is that caution that you have to use. Where I've found it useful with regards to not proposals in particular, but statements of work, which are the hardest part of of a proposal to write. I may have it write just an outline of the proposal. And then I will fill in, and just that alone, it's like, okay, well, these are the sections I need to talk about. That alone is enough for me to be able to write on my own. So
it helps you build a good template. I mean, it becomes the template you use.
Yep.
You guys do great statement of work. I mean, I've seen them because we've worked together on a couple things, and I love how you guys had that. The first time I think we did a project together. I saw that and went, wow, I'm doing this, and I'm.
That one was not ChatGPT. That one was
no.
I or Matt. It was originally my work, and then I think Matt we've been editing it.
That was prior ChatGPT. The other one out there, Bard. Have you played with Bard at all, Google?
I have not, but I do use. I have an account I pay for on Jasper.ai, which is another one. I like it because it gives you like basically a Google Doc where you get like the whole document you're working on, and you can like right click and rewrite the section, or can do things like that. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, I mean, I think that for proposals, a lot of it depends on how good of a writer you are. right? Like
Right.
most MSPs and most small businesses, most businesses under 50 employees, they're not going to have a dedicated writer or technical writer on staff, right? And we can argue whether or not they should if you're driving down a content marketing road, but they don't. So if the owner or the salesperson is a decent writer, then by all means, if it doesn't suck the soul out of you and take up all of your time, then write it. If it sucks the soul out of you and you absolutely hate it and it's the worst part of your job, then use ChatGPT to at least get you down the road, right? But again, I would caution to not necessarily use the first results that the thing gives you. Like, you need to edit it. For our business, we have a voice, right? Like, and I'm very cognizant in a lot of the things we do of that voice and the personality of the business. Like, we don't take ourselves too seriously, but we're not too informal, right? Like the voice of our business has largely come to echo my voice to a certain extent, which is a certain amount of shenanigans, like let's have fun while we're working, stuff like that. And ChatGPT doesn't understand that, right? So it's easy to lose your voice and to just become monotonous if you just use that stuff directly.
Well, it definitely has that cadence. You said it's a recognizable thing sometimes. It has a true cadence of how it goes and how it structures its sentences and how it uses verbs and pronouns and nouns. It really it's by far the neatest thing that's come out in a long time. And everybody's playing with it. But I think you look at it in a business aspect and what you're doing. Business is hard, right? I mean, running a business, owning a business, being in business, it's a hard thing. And I think people stray away from, oh, I don't want to use AI because it's not right, or it's this or it's that. But trying to help yourself ease some of those pain points within running a business. No one wants to write something. No one wants to send an email out to people to tell them that I'm sorry, but you're wrong or right, and if you're doing that, but ChatGPT can at least get you on the road to what you should say or how you should say it. That's my thought.
I mean, I wouldn't say no one. There are definitely people out there that enjoy writing and right, like, so, but the same way we use other tools, right? It's like I no longer do math on paper. Use a calculator, right? It's this is really the next evolution of something like that, right? It's like it'll be interesting to see what schools end up doing with it, because it is a tool. You're not putting the genie back in the bottle, right? So it's here, and we have to live with it.
Well, that's a funny question because you said school. Schools actually they will do plagiarism checks on papers turned in,
sure.
And I think it's starting to recognize the cadence of ChatGPT.
There are for sure detectors that can detect whether writing is OpenAI. It's not ChatGPT. It's one of the GPT model generated, right? And it doesn't take much editing to make it not detect it, though. So it's still what I would do if I was a student is I would make it write me an outline, and I would write the outline, right? Like I would do my paper based on the outline it generated to me, because honestly, coming up, organizing my thoughts into a coherent structure tends to be the hardest part, right? It's even when I do talks, like I just did a talk with CyberFox, and there's a likelihood here that I'll end up giving the same talk again, and it'll get edited a little bit, but it's like I have a lot of things I want to talk about, and it just kind of happens unless I that's the reason I take notes for these things, because like I go off on these wild tangents, and then I forget points, and then points get too early, and I have slides from later, right? And so using something like ChatGPT to say like, hey, I'm giving a talk on the security journey of an MSP, which is what my talk was on. Like, here are 10 talking points that I've come up with that I want to talk about. Prepare an outline for a presentation, and like it does a really good job of doing that, and it helps organize thoughts in that way. So if I was in either business or school.
Mm-hmm.
I would use that capability of it a lot. Like it's not just Google where you just type in the answer to a question. You can give it a lot more context, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
provide me a statement of work for managed backup service. It must include that backups that offsite backups are performed, that quarterly restore testing is performed, that
Mm-hmm.
Veeam sure backup is configured, right? Like that
Mm-hmm.
X amount of offsite storage is included, additional available, blah, 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 right? Like, and boom,
Right.
it will do with that additional context. It now does a really good job. So,
If
uh,
you're specific with it, I mean, you got to
yeah,
get down to that granular aspects of it, right? You need it.
yeah,
I'm actually doing with my networking group here in 2 weeks. I'm doing the 10-minute presentation to explain what we do with my entire, with the entire networking group. And I just thought about this. After we're done with this video, I'm going to go to ChatGPT and have it write me a quick outline on that.
yeah.
I've got to do it in 10 minutes. So I'm going to be very clear. I need to do a 10-minute talk on
Yep.
our company and blah blah. It'll be interesting to see what it comes up with. I'll have to send you that once
It'll
I get
do a
it.
good job because there's enough detail. Like it may have consumed enough detail about Lauren's systems to actually
Mhm.
be able to intelligently get you a good start.
Yeah.
The Yeah, that'll be really interesting. Right. Like I think that at some point or another, what you're gonna see is, you're already seeing jobs lost to this. And I
Mhm.
didn't think it would happen this quickly, but I am definitely already seeing people saying like, "Hey, my department laid off their whole team, and they're using ChatGPT." At some point or
That's
another,
crazy.
you're gonna start seeing uh, specialization in people that can write
Mhm.
really good prompts. Right? Like I've read several books now that basically are just books full of prompts, and they give you some ideas that like you can basically tell it to act in a certain mindset, or you can
Mhm.
tell it to mimic somebody else's voice, and it does a pretty good job of both of those things. And uh, yeah, it's kind of crazy.
So is it good or bad? Let me ask you that question. I think you had a question for me, but is it good or bad? Is it both? Is it more good, more bad? I mean, think about the aspects of this, which it's taking over some of our thought process.
Uh, I think it's good if used correctly, right?
Okay.
Like I do believe it will get overused, right? And there'll be a
Hmm.
pushback against it, right? Like that's how these things go, right? Like it'll get
Yeah.
overused, people get sick of it. uh, but I think if used correctly and not just letting it like displace your thoughts, but
Right.
letting it clarify and feeding your own thoughts into it, I think it
Hmm.
will be good. I look forward to the time when you can take a model like that and train it with some of your own writing and some of your own thoughts and have it produce stuff that comes out more in your voice, right? Like I think that's the next evolution of this, honestly.
Wasn't that what it was supposed to do though, is learn from how
It
you were doing things?
it does, but it only does it in the context of one conversation, right? And
Okay.
there's a token limit on the conversation. So you can only go so long before you have to start a new conversation, and then it forgets
Hmm.
everything. Right. So you can train it. Like like one of the things I've been using it for is like I'll do a blog post. I need to do a summary. So
Yep.
I'll write the blog post and then I'll just paste the whole blog post in. And sometimes I have to break it into a couple chunks and just say,
Hmm.
write a summary of this. And
Yeah.
it does it.
That's it. That's that. It's a useful tool when used correctly. I like how you state the outline aspect of
Yeah.
it, because even if it writes an outline, you talking about those talking points is still your thoughts,
Yep.
right? Your conversation.
So next thing we covered kind of proposals, sales and marketing material.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
Um,
This
I
is
will
on
tell
you.
you again. So looking back at it, and I actually had it help me write. We did a rate increase, and I had it help me write a rate increase letter, and
Mm-hmm.
I edited it a lot because you talked about earlier being the voice of the company, right? We're very similar with the way Tom has structured our company and the way you structured yours. Um, in the fact of, we want to have fun at work, we want to have shenanigans of sorts, but we want to get stuff done, right?
Mm-hmm.
and And so I think our marketing, and if you look at our website at lawrencesystems.com, you'll find that the way we talk, and it sounds like us, right?
Yep.
And ChatGPT is not there yet. We're very clear on that. But so I've had to edit it instead of saying, "Dear sir or madam," hey,
Mm-hmm.
just little things like that. You got to take it and make it your voice. So if you're going to be using it in a sales and marketing type aspect, make sure it still has the way you're talking to the client, because
Yep.
your brand is who you are. What you say about your brand is what people will
Yeah.
understand in
Yeah.
that. It's
It,
it's interesting how you have to do that. Go ahead.
it's no different than, so like we subscribe to Tech Tribe, right? And Nigel's
Hmm.
stuff is amazing. I can't, if
Agree. Agree.
you're not a member of Tech Tribe, it's like the best 50. I think it's still 50. It's the best little tiny bit of
Yeah.
money you'll spend a month, right? Like, and but he has these marketing packs and we don't use them as is. And the reason we don't
Hmm.
use them as is that cheeky Australian surfer dude is not our company voice. Right, like it's just it isn't. I mean, dude, we love you, Nigel, but like it doesn't. It's too informal, and there's too many like
Hmm.
Australianisms in them for them to really work without edits. Now we've used a
He's
lot of the
gonna fly over
content.
here and kick your
No,
butt,
he's
man.
not. We've used a lot of the content,
Yeah,
but we just like I'll
absolutely.
run it through a copywriter, or I myself will rewrite it or rephrase some things just to make it more in our voice, right? So like it, it's the same thing as any sort of syndicated content like that, right? Like you just have to understand that it is what it is, and
Mhm.
it's not, if you want to, if you're really being serious about providing a consistent voice and message, then you need to edit it. You can't just use it as is.
Right. And I think it's that way. I mean, there are many. There've been many companies out there that have use our marketing, use our marketing, use our marketing, and it is in their voice, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think when ChatGPT starts to learn what your voice sounds like, it'll become a more dynamic
Yeah.
thing. Right now, it's, I think, a good starter
Well,
point.
the ability to paste that Tech Tribe content into it and tell it to put
Mhm.
it out in my voice would be amazing.
Yes, it would. Nigel, get working on that, okay?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, it's I think he'll understand, but based on what you said, it's
No, it's
really
fine.
it's an important aspect though of being able to have tools like what Nigel's created
Yeah.
and ChatGPT and other companies out there that have this. At least it gives you a starting point, because you said it, I believe it. The starting point is always the hardest part,
Yeah.
right? Starting the race. Finishing is not the hard part. It's starting
No.
and getting going and moving.
So last
Hmm.
thing here, and I'm gonna pull it back more technical. And
Oh,
I want your opinion first. Using it to write scripts or code.
I've seen it done within our office, and the amazement of, oh crap, this works. But every time there's something in it that maybe needs to be fixed or
Yeah.
tweaked.
Yeah. So we've seen a couple of tools in our ecosystem basically
Hmm.
include generative scripting capabilities, and I don't. I think you have to approach that with a very large grain of salt.
Hmm.
Personally, for a number of reasons, at least in the case of PowerShell, it definitely
Yeah.
understands that the commandlet format tends to be verb dash noun, and it will
Hmm.
just make them up, right? So let's say it wants to download an antivirus installer,
Hmm.
right? It will just do download installer. And like
Right.
that's not right. That's not a commandlet, right? It just makes them up. And so I think that I see use cases like Copilot, right, which is the GitHub thing that is
Yep.
Microsoft in the backside now, right? Where like they have IntelliSense, and you're starting to see some AI assisted code generation things in there. I am all about that use case, right? Like
Hmm.
there are much like the writing use cases. Sometimes there's getting the initial thing on the page is the hardest, and in software development, there are a lot of really, really, really boring constructs that you end up writing over and over, like various loops, lambdas for things, right? Like, and there's boilerplate code, and having something that can help with that boilerplate code and can help you when you're like, oh man, I can't remember how to write a skip list. Like, that's a data structure that I don't use. Yeah. So it's like, hey,
how do I do this?
Write me .NET code to do, or Java code or C code to do a skip list, right? And or some sort of other crazy data structure that you're like, oh man, I could really use this data structure here, but I can't remember how to write it. Instead of pulling out, your copy of an algorithms book and like sitting down and writing, you're finding a library, that it can help. But if it doesn't absolve you of knowing how to code, and that is where I think a lot of the danger comes in, is that if you weren't qualified to write that yourself, are you qualified to review the output to determine it's actually doing what you intended to do?
That's a great point. Because I think you just did the explode someone's mind aspect of that, because how, if you didn't understand how it wrote it, or what what you want it to do, you're going to have to go through that code and just line by line by line.
Yep. And in the case of something that runs in your RMM, for instance, there are nuances around things like environment variables that the model's just not going to understand, and you can accidentally do the wrong thing very easily without knowing what's happening.
Install Chrome on every machine within our ecosystem.
Yeah, I mean, not even that, right? It's like environment variables, right? Like it's username or home directory, right? Like under your RMM's context, these things tend to run a system. So the username is system 30 or NT authority system, and its home directory is C Windows system 32. And if you don't understand that, and it will make use of those environment variables, and they aren't what you think they are. And so you can definitely shoot yourself in the foot. And there's lots of cases like that, right? Like there's whenever you're running a script inside of another engine, understanding the unique constructs of the engine you're working in is a requirement, and it does not.
Well, I mean, it's not there yet. It's never. I mean, everything starts with in its infancy, right? And right now it's in its infancy, getting to almost toddler stage. So it's in its terrible twos. But I think all in all, it helps in getting you started. We're going to see that functional teams, large corporations are going to be able to move a little bit faster, because there's not a brain trust in a room trying to figure out how to start this damn thing.
Yep. Right? 100%.
I think it's going to start to streamline business. I don't think it should replace people, but I think it should help in streamline. It will help in streamlining getting started on something.
Yeah. And one thing to keep in mind is that it's not producing new thoughts, right? So it's basically taking the collective knowledge it's been fed with and parroting that knowledge. So it's not necessarily creating anything new. So it's not gonna create the next paradigm shift in something. It's somebody else is gonna do that, and then eventually the model will learn it.
This is an interesting topic. I think we could beat it to death more.
Okay.
But I think for each person that listens to this, it's all what is your use case, right? What do you need it for? What is it going to? What's the outcome you're looking for? And hopefully at some point it'll be able to become your voice. But until then, how are you going to take that, edit it, make it become your voice?
I couldn't agree more. I think that's a natural stopping point.
That is, man. And I think this is hey, like and subscribe. This is Business Technicalities. Jason here is the man, I will say. And I said my website out loud, so you got to say your website out loud.
CWR.com. I can do it. I did it.
That's it. All right, man.
Okay.
Hey,
till next week.
Everyone, till next week. Have a good one, everyone.
Yep. I'll talk to you later.
Bye.